Hi guys, Alex Peak Performance Reviews. Welcome to another vlog and welcome to another video on the Supra. And you'll see that the title is kind of a little bit of a, not a giveaway, but a giveaway as such. But if you hadn't watched, basically, I'm now basically set up for a live video. You would see probably the prior video to this. We've revealed our dyno numbers on the Supra. If you have missed that, by all means watch the live re-live, but if not, alternatively just listen to what I'm going to say on this video. I've also got some updates and some things that have been done as well on this car, just to spruce it up and do a few more things. All will be apparent when I continue on and talk about what I'm going to say. So like I say, if you missed the video of the reveal numbers, I'm going to tell you them now. The car is healthy, it's making awesome power. Romain at Race Cow is an absolute genius, an absolute god. Really knows what he's doing with the help of some really good people that I've been speaking to in the States, like Jay from Real Street Performance, giving me advice on the car, getting amazing parts and products for the car, and also the person who built this motor. Big massive props and thank you goes out to Mark at Marcus Extreme Engines. Team Extreme, you'll know him from Team Extreme as well. The Team Extreme R32 GTR is one of the quickest cars and R32s in Europe. It is the quickest R32 in UK, proven in terms of time, and won multiple shows and drag events. Running around, I think, an 8.3 or an 8.2 at 168 mile an hour. Absolute rocket ship. He also builds Gary Goodin's Mark IV Supra, which is a full-blown drag car, concrete feel, but really nice build, mental. Been built by Gary, by Mark at Mark's Extreme Engines, and that car puts out, I don't know, 1,200 wheel horsepower plus, and he runs a 7.5, I think, 180 miles an hour. So it's a very quick car, a full-blown drag car. There's big things coming for that car. I'd like to think that it's going to be real deep, low sevens. They're going to be pushing for the late sixes this year, with Mark's help and Gary pushing that car a little bit more and more with big turbine and lots of other bits. Anyway, let's get back to the Supra. So, like I say, if you didn't watch on the live video, you will have, if you did, you would have seen the power figures. Car is really healthy. There's lots of little things that could be improved, and Romain's given me a little list of, it's actually a list of two things, actually, two small things, which I may have already bought to improve the car and help it make even more power. And I'll explain now again if you haven't watched the live video. So the car made on its lowest boost setting, which is basically wastegate pressure. If people understand how kind of turbocharged cars work, when they're relatively extreme, the lowest boost pressure you can run is effectively the crack pressure, they call it, or wastegate spring pressure, same thing. And that's basically dictated by how low you can turn down the boost, and it's dictated by the springs that are in the wastegate, spring or springs. Ours is springs because it's twin wastegate, twin 44 tile MSV R or MSV wastegates, and it's got two springs, and the lowest you can get them down to, based on turn down and based on Romain checking it out, is 1.6 bar. So it's not that high, but relatively high for a low boost setting as such. But at the end of the day, the funny thing is with springs is if you run to lighter spring and you make it turn down to 1 bar, it can the spring can struggle to do what it needs to do at the higher end when you push it. So it's a real balancing act, and this is the awkward thing when you're pushing big power, and this is why you have to choose things the right way. So we've gone for a 1.6 bar spring, and it seems as though it's really controlling things up at higher boost pressures as well. So 1.6 bar is the lowest pressure. Now the problem with running 1.6 bar is on this fairly big turbine, 1.6 bar was 700 wheel horsepower, which I think is 830 odd flywheel, 820 odd flywheel, brake horsepower. So the lowest pressure is that. The beauty of this car is now we have drive-by-wire, so we can turn it down really cleverly using throttle position opening, so limiting the throttle openings. Really clever. Probably may do that. I said to Romain, I've got to get driving this car when I've done the little bits that I want to do to it, and I'm going to push it. We're going to data log it. We're going to check out some stuff, do some data logging, do some runs on the road before we go and race, which I'll tell you about as well. Another thing, another kind of reveal of what we're doing with the car very shortly. Anyway, and moving on, we then took the car to multiple settings and things like that, and we're going to do more on multiple settings and so we've got the ability to turn it up bit by bit. But the next setting worth noting is the maximum pump fuel figures. So maximum power on V-Power was around 800 wheel horsepower. So it's 952 or 953 brake horsepower at the flywheel on pump fuel, so nearly 1,000 horsepower on pump fuel, which obviously made for good reading, and at the end of the day we had a good idea that it was going to make some really good power, pending nothing, we had no issues, there was no issues with knock and anything else, and the car wasn't complaining. It didn't, so we put the obviously that's as much as we could do safely on pump fuel, so we put in the race fuel, and which is a K16 Renegade race fuel. Bought that from Track Stuff, links in the bio to where you get that. I'm going to need to get some more for my racing coming up, and yeah, it's basically 120 octane. My tuner laughed at how it resisted knock, to the extent he was being very sarcastic, basically saying how ridiculously amazing, and it weren't touching the size of what we were pushing. So we ended up hitting 1,059 horsepower at the flywheel, just around 900 wheel horsepower. And it was only on, this is the even more amazing thing, it was only on 2.1 bar. Now on that 120 octane K16, basically the way things were going, it looked as though we could push this car. Everything was not basically complaining at all. No horrible harmonics, no horrible knock or anything like that. So we would have been able to turn it up a lot. We ended up pushing 1,059 horsepower on 2.1 bar. I think it might have been a microfraction under 2.1 bar, but 2.1 bar. Basically 2.1 bar on K16 on the turbo that we have is really not turning things up much at all. This turbo likes about 2.7 bar, and then it becomes its most efficient and really starts making power between really good numbers between 2.5 and 2.7. Actually, they really creep up. Not that 1,059 horsepower isn't a lot, but basically we can turn it up a lot. We didn't, because there was a minor issue. There's two minor issues, but they need sorting because they can be dangerous, even though it isn't nothing that's really massively detrimental to the engine. It's detrimental to your health and safety, really, more than anything. So the car was pushing out a bit of oil from the catch can, and this is a really weird one. We've checked all the motor and everything like that, and everything is very healthy in the motor, so it's not chucking out oil because of any reason like that. I then started worrying that the turbo was over oiling, and it turns out that it's not at all. And weirdly, we've got a real big issue now. When you I've got these massive Powerhouse Racing rocker covers. They vacate crankcase gases better than anything else out on the market. They're very expensive rocker covers, very expensive, the most expensive ones you can run on Supra. They're found on often 2,000 horsepower, anything from 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 horsepower drag racing Supras, but they are made for a certain reason. They are very good at vacating crankcase ventilation. A lot of people, in my opinion, don't look at that. They don't worry about that. They don't think about that. It's very important to do that. The only problem is when you have something like that, they often don't have very good baffles as well. So they because the people that produce them will often vent to atmosphere, and they'll vent right at the back of the car, and literally oil will spray everywhere. It's not ideal for a road car. It's not great. I didn't kind of realise this so much. I remember doing some research a long time back, and Jay at Real Street Performance was kind of telling me be careful, or was really saying that he doesn't overly like that system if you don't do other things to it. So I ended up working with Jay. So it was basically doing exactly that. What I've had to do is basically the catch can that I'm fitting today, I'm doing some modifications on it. We're having to basically add a third port to that 2-port can. And then another thing that they do is on the sump, somewhere just above the sump, where there's immediate crankcase windage as such, you add a flange, a big 16 and fitting, which is huge, and then it's got to go to an additional can, a second pot. I'm basically building one myself, so I've bought a kind of cylinder, aluminium cylinder pot, which is it's effectively, actually, I've bought a swirl pot. It's got lots of ports on there that I don't want, so I'm going to have to cut them, weld them, and then redo a -16 port, which will go from the I'll call it the windage tray, just above the, it's not really, it's essentially just the side of the block. It's going to go -16 from there to the pot, and then from that pot, there's no vent on the pot, and then it will feed up then in a -12 to the current catch can, and then that catch can will vent. What happens is, effectively, with dumbed down science, I'm going to tell you, is that bottom one acts as a windage tray, and all the sloshing thrown kind of oil that you can't stop on those big rocker covers will get thrown into that pot. It kind of collects in there, doesn't necessarily need to be baffled. We may add baffle into it. I'm just speaking to Jay just to kind of finalise what I'm going to do in my design, doing it all myself, making it all myself, and then it then basically catches in that, and that catches and stops all the sloshing and the flicking and throwing of the oil. Like I say, you then don't vent it, so it stays in there, and then it kind of backfeeds or feeds into the top one. By that time, and when it comes up into that top can, it only requires then a little bit of ventilation, which comes out of that K&N little mini filter, and it vents. And it apparently you then have an absolute dry catch can on the top. This system, an oiling system, is based around a Cosworth and an old Cosworth trick and racing catch can setup. A lot of other race cars use the exact same thing as well. It's just a race car setup that can cost a fair bit of money, but it has to be done. Needs must. At the end of the day, that will help this really good system that can be not a good system become a very good system. So yeah, we're doing that. So basically, because of that, it had to be stopped on the dyno because of safety reasons. It was chucking out a tiny bit of oil onto and around where I had it originally, which was near some of the tyres, so it just wouldn't have been good. So Romain said, look, you can take the car back, it's no issue, don't drive it hard for now, we'll do some logging, fix that problem, and then we can turn it up and do whatever else we need to do. But really good results nonetheless. We've got those results. I'll stick, or you probably would have seen some figures in the dyno sheet, maybe on my Insta, and if not, it's coming up on the screen now, of the top setting that we did on 2.1 bar race fuel. And so that will be sorted. The other issue was, at that point, at around 2.1 bar, my 4-inch giant Blitz intercooler, which is a lovely, expensive, really good intercooler again, but it's been on here since the life of the car. They're kind of pegged when you get to around the 1100-ish horsepower level, flywheel kind of. 4-inch intercoolers can just take about that, and even in that realm, as soon as they get to around 1,000. What Romain has done is he's mimicked a half-mile run, because it's the most extreme situation where on high boost I'm going to take this car. So he mimicked a half-mile run, and because of that, he could see what was going on with the heats and the temperatures. They were getting high, but not alarmingly high, but it's about as much as you'd want to do on that intercooler. So he just recommended that I get a bigger intercooler, so a 5-inch or a 6-inch. 6-inch is very hard to fit and requires some big modification. 5-inch will be good for probably 13 to 1500 horsepower. So for now, I'm going to do that kind of iteration. Maybe at a later date I'll go for a 6-inch, and I'll think about how I do that. Anyway, I've bought one since, and it's ready to go on. I'm going to probably start trying to do that today or next week, but I've got everything on there to turn it up. Based on the figures and based on what power it is making, the car is on for definitely making, on the high boost setting, around 1200 to maybe even 1250 horsepower. This motor is healthy. The head is incredibly well built. The dyno graph, you probably won't see from that because it's kind of skewed in, if that makes sense. It's not really, it's hard to read. And some other dyno sheets have spread out RPM a lot longer, so you can read the RPM, but I've got a printout where it shows you the RPM and the power it makes at every RPM. Now, whatever Mark at Extreme Engines has done to that car, and I know what he's done pocket ports and all kinds of port work to that. Mark used to work at Cosworth before he set up shop himself, and he's worked at some other amazing companies. That guy knows what he's doing. He's done some simple to mid to kind of medium level to race level head work. You can go more extreme, but we didn't need to go that for what I was kind of planning as such. You can't go too extreme, but obviously it's huge time it goes beyond that when you go race. It'd be crazy thousands of pounds, but what we spent on it was still a lot of money. But it kind of is like it's kind of what you call, I think most people call in America, is stage 3 to 4 head. Even some parts are kind of stage 5, so it's quite extreme. Not insane, but it's mad. Whatever the hell Mark has done, I said to him, strangely, I've been looking and dissecting multiple Supras, mainly from the States, because there's not too many cars that run this turbo in the UK. I think two maybe, 2 or 3 perhaps, that are running big power, that have got built motors and stuff like that. And of all of the cars I've seen on this same turbo anywhere in the world, we make much better power low down. We seem to be making power, more power than anyone else by a good margin, sometimes 100 horsepower above and 50 horsepower above in different sections, low down, about 500 RPM earlier, which is incredible. So whatever the hell little recipe we've spread on this between all the guys that have been involved in the work on this, have done just such a good job. And then what else happens is, at top as well, the car makes and seems to continue to make more power than any other car. It doesn't seem to tail off. These turbos, even though they're big, they'll still run out and start to really skew if over 7,000 RPM. This is still making very good power, tailing off minusculely, whereas other cars just tail off dead. And this just makes power all the way to red line, which is 8,300. We could go more, we could go 9,000, but apparently it's good for the synchros to keep the RPM between changes down. I could increase the RPM in maybe some gears higher up, but I don't want to kill the Getrack, the 6-speed manual box in this, which is a stock manual gearbox, because I'm trying to preserve and run a 6-speed gearbox, unlike a lot of people who are scared to continue to run them now. Because they're becoming crazy money to rebuild. But yeah, so that is that. What a result. I'm so pleased. Thanks to all the guys. Thanks to Remain at Race Cal. Thanks to Mark's Extreme Engines. Full Throttle for doing some of the other bits and stuff when they had the car. Awesome work from everyone, really. Yeah, mega. Yeah, I'll show you what I'm going to do today anyway. Let's get on. I'll try not to make this any more longer than it already is. So yeah, as I said, I've got to modify that brand new catch can. Big up to Paul Whiffin at Whiff Bits. Amazing bits. I when I shop in England, I do buy a lot of things. In fact, actually, near enough all of the carbon fibre on here. There's loads. There's this. There's a shroud down low. There's a shroud there. This, all carbon fibre bits, and I've got an intake light that's carbon fibre, and a lot of other bits actually from from Paul Whiffin at Whiff Bits. So I'll give you links in the bio to where you get stuff from him. Got some nice Exo Racing parts, the braided lines and the fittings. But yeah, what we're going to do is we've got to, like I say, modify this, fit in the catch can today, and then we are going to do a few other little drops, fit a bigger battery to Remain at Race Cal's happiness. He'll be very happy with that. And other than that, there's not too much else. So I'm going to get on with that, and you can join me later in the video to see how we get on.